We are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And before we get into episode number 39, you guys know the deal. I got to talk to you about a few quick things. First off, if you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe. We're going to be talking about a lot in today's episode. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, hot takes, make sure to comment below. We'd love to know what you guys have to say. And then also, we have partnered up with Grind Clothing Co. as our official merch sponsor. So if you are new to the channel or we are your new favorite Detroit Pistons podcast, make sure to click the link in our YouTube bio or in the description below. That link will shoot you to all the different designs we have to offer. We have polos, t-shirts, hats, quarter zips, all of the above. So make sure to go check it out. And then also go check out their designs that they drop monthly. They have a lot of different styles and things that you may like and may want in your closet. Let's get into episode number 39 of season 2. And we are going to be talking about Summer League standouts and the players that impressed us, players that maybe exceeded our expectations, and players that we are so happy to see succeed. And I want to start off with today's episode with talking about Dennis Jenkins. He is a 6'3" guard out of Dallas, Texas, but he played at St. John's University. Ryan, he had a great summer league debut. He went undrafted. What were some of the statistics we saw with his team, with his time with the Pistons?
So he averaged, I would say, 10 points a game, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal and a half rather, a block. He had a couple turnovers here and there, a couple fouls here and there, but that's expected. Played 26 minutes plus per average, and then shot nearly 35% from the field, 33% from three, and 93% at the line.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so the statistics show that he was fairly consistent through and through. Right. Something that really showed bright to me when watching Jenkins' game is he's great at the catch and shoot, and he did that in bunches. But something that kind of showed evident was he wasn't so great at passing around the arc to the 3-point, around the 3-point line, but was great at dishing down below. And I think that's something that might prove true that the Pistons may need in the regular season with their bigs. I was impressed with Jenkins' passing ability to the paint.
Yeah, his passing, like you go from, okay, so St. John's, you have Rick Pitino, head coach. We all know Rick Pitino was at Louisville, and then all that stuff happened with the NCAA. Fast forward, he rejuvenates his career in Greece, then ends up at Iona, and then now more recently at St. John's. And Jenkins has followed him from Iona to St. John's, and it's evident because Jenkins is one of those players where he fits the Pitino mold. And Rick Pitino, I personally think, without what happened at Louisville, I do think he is one of the better college basketball coaches of all time. But Jenkins, he's a very gritty player. And when I was watching his game in the tape, like you mentioned, his passing ability to the paint, like that is something that was made note of for me. Something else was his defense. His defense is, compared to the rest of the guys on that squad, like it was substantial enough where you would notice not even like a minute into the game. And then I would say just the shades of what he played like reminded me of a Jose Alvarado type player. Jose Alvarado also went undrafted. Who picked him up? Oh, I don't know. Trajan Langdon picked him up. So it's no shocker here that Jenkins, who looks very similar to Jose Alvarado, gets picked up, and they're very similar players in their play style. Both can shoot at a high rate at the line. They're not spectacular, but they have a solid 3-point shot, solid jumper. Their passing ability is not like out of this world, but when they're dishing to the paint, it's near the top of the league. But what I saw out of him was just an all-around showcase, because there's games where he'd go off for, what was it, 24, and then the next game he has 6, and you're like, ooh, what happened there? But majority of those games, he was not looking for his shot at all. The one he had 24 points in, he was actually looking for his shot. So it seemed like he was trying to do every little thing for the Pistons, and that's something that I wanted to make note of. Is he seemed more like an all-around player than I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to focus on the team.
And Dennis is a player that we had to highlight because some of his performances just caught the media's eye, the NBA fans' eyes. And one of his performances, he had 18 first half points against the Houston Rockets. So it's not that he's just, slowly gathering points. He can get points at a high and fast rate. I kind of wanted to highlight some of his interviews because I was watching his interviews with the media, and guys like Jenkins don't always get a lot of attention, when you play at a team like St. John's. But he highlighted to the media multiple occasions that he's grateful for the Pistons giving him a chance, and that they had belief in him, and that helps him have confidence in himself to succeed. I think what Trajan is really good at doing is hyping people up, going to guys like Dennis Jenkins and being like, hey, we're going to give you a shot. Go do your thing. Go and just have full ability to do what you would like, lead this team. And I think that Jack too, the head coach of the Summer League team, being a point guard and giving the confidence in Dennis to go out and do his thing. I think this Pistons organization as a whole, if they've done anything good the last couple of seasons with all the losing, is they have coaches that are trying to put full confidence in these players to go out, do their thing, and try to succeed. And Dennis is one of those players that is a perfect example of, all right, we know you're an underdog. We know you went undrafted. Go prove these scouts, these fans, that you should have believed in them all along.
Yeah, when you look at the tape and you think of what the Pistons signed him to, they signed him to a two-way deal, meaning like Langdon believes he's not just some player that's going to be in the G League forever. He believes that he is going to get a shot at some point in the NBA. And when you think about what you could have done with a second round, because typically a second round pick is signed on a two-way deal, he signs Bobby Klintman, who we will be talking about later on, to a fully guaranteed 4-year deal. And it's like, whoa, that's not necessarily heard of for a second round pick. And then this is his two-way player in Dennis Jenkins. And like you mentioned, the way he answered in the interviews, the way he plays on the court, like he just seems like a player that we would want on the Pistons. He seems like the definition of a Pistons player, from the grittiness to how he handles himself with the media to just the laundry list of things. And yeah, he didn't have like a, whoa, that who is that guy? But he had a showcase of which you're going like, at least for me, when I was watching these Summer League games, I was going like, yeah, he's a Summer League guy. There's Ron Holland. He should be in the NBA. Dennis Jenkins. He looks like an NBA player, because you look through all those players in Summer League, a lot of those guys don't land. And when I watched Dennis Jenkins, I'm sitting there going like, yep, he's going to be in the NBA. And no matter if it's with us or with somebody else down the line, I think Dennis Jenkins, the way he plays the game as an NBA player. A lot of these guys in Summer League they play as if they're at the college level, or they play as if they've been playing overseas, or this and that. And Dennis Jenkins, to me, didn't have a stellar Summer League, but he made a point to go like, hey, look at me. I'm actually good. Give me a chance and you'll get everything out of me. And Dennis Jenkins just seems like a true Piston, from the interviews to the all-around play. And I loved it out of him. Obviously, the games for the rest of Summer League after he had that 24-point night, it wasn't like spectacular, but he just filled up the box score for the rest of those 2 games, or few games rather. And if you can get a guy that isn't afraid to fill up the box score, if he's having a bad shooting night, or if he's not even looking for his shot and looking for others, I want that on my team.
Yeah. Make sure to comment below what your thoughts were on Dennis Jenkins' debut with the Pistons during Summer League. One last note from me with Jenkins is when you look at his game, obviously has a lot of fullness to it. You know, he's not the best finisher, but he kind of makes up for it with his passing and three-point ability. Tough defender. He's the kind of guy that's just missing that athletic ability, that get up and down the floor really quick, be able to have those chase down blocks, just like those little athletic things that a guy like Ron Holland has, or a guy like John Morant has. That's the one thing that, like, Dennis would have been a first round pick easily if he just had those athletic abilities. Now let's kind of flip the coin and talk about our other guard with the Pistons Summer League team, our good old Marcus Sasser. I love this guy. Everybody kind of knows it, but I love Marcus Sasser. Ryan, I have a couple examples of things that he did during the games, but what are some of the statistics we saw from him during Summer League?
So this Summer League, he averaged 12 points, 2 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, a block, pretty much 4 turnovers, 2 fouls, played 28 minutes, shot 33% from the field, 25% from three, and then
Okay.
79% at the line.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you gotta love, Marcus Sasser during Summer League time. He had a great outing last season, had that 40-point game last year against the Indiana Pacers, I believe. He's just a guy that plays really well in Summer League. And I think that shows how NBA ready he is. I think it's just last season with the players that were surrounding him, it just didn't pan out the way we wanted it to. I'm thinking that Marcus Sasser is in for a big season. That's going to be my prediction again for this upcoming season, is that he's going to have a big year. But a big key point I want to make about Marcus Sasser is the game versus the Bulls. There's only one lead change in that game, with the Pistons overcoming a 16-point deficit to prevail with the lead. That came in the fourth quarter, with the Pistons going on a 20-2 run to take control. The Bulls led 31-17 after the opening frame, but then the Pistons outscored them by 22 points across the final 3 quarters. The Pistons were led by the great Marcus Sasser, who tallied 17 points, 3 assists, and 5 steals. And obviously, the points come to mind why Marcus was able to lead the Pistons, and prevail over the Bulls. But the big thing to note, too, that we didn't necessarily see last season were the 5 steals. So in my brain, I like to look at that and say, Marcus Sasser, we know that you're great at scoring, but at the end of last season, we said that he needed to focus on defense. He needed to be a staple. He needed to be able to get into the passing lanes and guard these premier backup point guards in today's NBA. And what did he show us this Summer League right away against the Bulls? That he made a statement on the defensive end with 5 steals. Ryan, that is so crucial when looking at the progression of Marcus Sasser getting better for the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, when I was watching him, the 2 points that I made note of was the defense, like you mentioned, but then his control of the game. When you look at the I guess you could say the statistics here, his shooting was not spectacular. It was probably worse this year than it was last Summer League.
Right.
And that's, like, to me, it's like, honestly, it's not a pleasant sight, but it's not the end of the world. But the defense, the way he took that step, he's blocking shots, getting steals left and right. This is something that Marcus Sasser last year wasn't necessarily doing all that often compared to this Summer League. And then his control. When he was in the game last year in the regular season for us, and then even in Summer League, it wasn't. It seems more so that he was just trying to get his shot up, trying to get a pass here and there.
Right.
But there was not really any control. And then you'd have, obviously, the opposing team just going time after time after time, just beating us down. But what Marcus Sasser showed in Summer League, besides the defense, to me, is the control over the floor. Like he was controlling the game. Like in that last stretch, like it was just Marcus Sasser with the ball in his hands, controlling it, facilitating when he needs to facilitate, looking for his shot when he needs to look for his shot. Even though he's not shooting great this summer league, he still looked for his shot at times, and he had great looks. Just the defensive upgrade in from the end of last year, which wasn't that long ago, to now, there's a big jump there. And then the control over the game, once again, that was another big jump. And you add those two things to what he did well last year, which last year, I mean, against good teams, notably like the Clippers and the Bucks, we saw Marcus Sasser go off for 20 plus points a game, and we're like, whoa, where did this come from? You're not expecting Sasser to go off against some of the better teams in the league, and then against some of the worst teams in the league, we saw the opposite, where he'd have a bad game. And I don't know why that is. I can't explain it. Maybe it's the big moments or whatnot that really fuels him. But if you look at what he did last year, what he did good last year was he did look for his shot, and that was good. But this year you add defense to that because he has a really long wingspan. So you add the defense and you add the control over what he did last year. I think he does take a big jump this upcoming season, and he kind of has to, because if he doesn't, I could see it in a world where he's going to lose some minutes and maybe get out of the rotation, or maybe even gets moved on from. But he needs to make a big jump this year, and I think what we saw in summer league this year, on top of how he finished last year, I think he's good, just stewing something. Something's brewing, and we're going to see a big jump from Sasser this upcoming season.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, as something's brewing. I think Marcus Sasser's in for a big year. I like how you said that you also saw his control over the game, because that was something I noticed too, about how his vision around the 3-point line and passing to the shooters on that team, it was great and a high clip. You know, he had guys like Dennis Jenkins, Bobby Clintman, who we're about to talk about. I think he really knew that, like, okay, I'm surrounded by shooters. Let me get them the ball. And I think what we saw during Summer League that we didn't see last season is when he struggled from the 3-point line. Last season, he would just keep throwing it up. Well, this Summer League, he kind of tried to pull himself back. Okay, I've missed 3 threes in a row here. Let me get the ball to Dennis. Let me get the ball to Bobby. So I think that he did a great job of kind of staying within himself. And I think with all the additions of, you know, that Trajan's brought in during this offseason is only going to help Marcus Sasser, because now he doesn't have to focus on the scoring load. He can focus on the passing around the arc, like we saw him do so well this Summer League. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do within this new, basically a new offense than what he had last season. I think he's going to succeed and play at a very high level.
Yeah, when you think of the new additions that Langdon has brought in, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., and so on, I think those additions are really going to help Sasser. Like, I mean, obviously they're going to help everybody on this team: Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, etc. But I think, I mean, I would say every single player on this team will be uplifted in a way with these new additions that are getting brought in, just because they're vets, they've played at a high rate their entire careers. And they're just good all around guys. And Marcus Sasser, when he was at Houston, he was known as not necessarily the guy. He was more of a sidekick. He was the guy that when you needed a bucket, he was going to get you that bucket. When you needed him to facilitate, he was going to facilitate. When you needed him to defend, he was going to defend. And his first year in Detroit, he was kind of, when he got thrown into the offense, or just the lineup in general, it seemed like Monty really wanted him to look to score right away, rather than do what Marcus Sasser is good at and what he's known for. Monty just seemed like he wanted a completely different player from what Sasser was. And I think that kind of hurt Sasser, because Sasser's getting thrown into the opportunity of, like you mentioned, after he'd miss a couple, he just kept shooting and shooting and shooting. And yes, good shooters shoot, and you shouldn't stop if you're a good shooter. But Marcus Sasser, even as good as he is, he's also a great facilitator. He's shown in Summer League this year, he's a great defender. When he's given the opportunity to be himself, he can have success. And I think the new additions between Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, who I forgot to mention, and then Tim Hardaway Jr. I think those three guys will help elevate Sasser in his game and take less pressure off him. Like those three guys are going to take less pressure off the rest of the team, especially Cade Cunningham. So I think Marcus Sasser, with the new additions, we're going to see Marcus Sasser be more of himself rather than who he was last year with a montified Marcus Sasser. And I think he does make that big jump just because he's not getting his shot called on as much, and he can just truly be himself.
All right, let's move on to Bobby Klintman, the next player we have to highlight that had a great Summer League debut. Ryan, if you want to give us the stats on Bobby.
So this year for Summer League, he averaged 11 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, a block, 2 turnovers, 2 fouls, averaged out to around 29.2 minutes per game, shot 42% from the field, 42% from 3, and 50% at the line. And I just want to make one note about the free throws. He only had 2 free throws, and that's it during the all Summer League. So 50%, even though that is spectacular, just keep in mind it was just 2 free throws.
All right. So when evaluating Bobby and bringing him up in the conversation, a lot of people highlight his offensive ability in how he scored at all 3 levels. And that's what we talked about last week. If you haven't watched the last week's episode, just highlighting in the history of Bobby and kind of giving you a full breakdown of that, go watch that. And a lot of that episode, we talked about his offense, but one thing to note too is his defense. And per pistonsatdawn.com, it has a quote talking about Bobby's defense, and I kind of want to read it for you guys. Klintman produced a lot to like on the defensive end too. He's got solid pace, moved well laterally, meaning opponents rarely got the better of him off the dribble. So meaning weren't able to get to the rim past him. Attackers who attempted to bypass him vertically appeared to find shot making difficult due to Klintman's size and wingspan. Okay, so the Pistons didn't just add a offensive juggernaut, they also added a defensive player that is going to clog lanes and protect the rim. And I think that this was a great pickup for the Detroit Pistons. And Ryan, he just jumps out to me as a star. Ryan, what are some of your first thoughts on Bobby and his play during Summer League? He just seems to be so good on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, like I mentioned before in the previous episode, if you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. I made note of the fact that who he reminds me of, and that is a Kyle Kuzma-esque player. I'm not saying he is Kyle Kuzma, but there are a lot of similarities between Kyle Kuzma when he was in Summer League to Bobby Klintman's Summer League. But the difference between the two that I want to make note of is Kyle Kuzma is very loud and he's full of himself, whereas Bobby Klintman is more on the conservative side. He's more on the quiet side. And that's the difference in their game entirely. Because but yes, that's the difference. But what Bobby Klintman showed me is, yes, he can shoot. Yes, he can score at all 3 levels. Yes, he can defend. But it just, to me, there was the eye test. When I made a note of Dennis Jenkins a minute ago, I made a note of going all down the line of players on the team. I'm like, okay, I'm watching them. Yeah, they look good. Yeah, it's here and there. NBA player, NBA player, NBA player. And I listed an NBA player for Bobby Klintman. I think he's an absolute stud and a steal of this draft. But keep in mind, we still have to develop him a little bit because he's a little rough on the edges in some parts. Because the one thing that he needs to work on is consistency. Because there's games where he's scoring a lot and he's not hitting the glass as hard, or he's hitting the glass hard and his shot's not falling. We need to find a level of consistency there for him to have success for a long time, for a long stretch. But there's been multiple flashes here and there where I'm seeing a great player because, like you said, he can clog the lane. There was not one opportunity where these guys that he was defending, none of them could really get past him, for one. his wingspan just it clogs the lane for sure. But like when you look and you analyze his game and you watch him without the ball, even his defense speaks volumes, and the way he cuts and moves himself around in the offense without the ball in his hands is very good too. And so it's like not only can he score at all three levels, can defend at a high rate, but him without the ball, we mentioned last year, if you can move with a purpose, you should belong on the court.
Yep.
And Bobby Clintman was moving with a purpose without the ball in his hands. And it was fun to watch and exciting to me because now I would say there are shades behind like a Kyle Kuzma. Yes. You could throw out Kevin Durant, which is bold, I know, but you could. There's just so many, there's a laundry list, I would say, of guys that you could really say there are shades of those guys in Bobby Clintman's game. And the only reason why I think Bobby Clinton even fell to the second round was because nobody really knew who he was, because he's comes from Sweden, as I mentioned, and then he was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school rather. Committed ended up committing to Wake Forest. Before that, he had a decision between like Maryland and a couple other schools. Focused on Wake Forest. At that year at Wake Forest, he was showing flashes here and there, but nothing spectacular. And then he's like, okay, let me declare for the draft. He was in the draft class last year, but then realized, ooh, I'm not as good as all these other guys. I need to go pro. And so he heads over to Australia, plays in the NBL, and he makes another jump in his game. And then just the fact that we were able to get a player of his caliber and just somebody that I think all Pistons fans are going to agree with me on this, is that when you watch him, you see like a bright future with this kid. And there's just not one thing that he does great. There's a lot of things that he does good. But if you were to say one great thing about him, I would say his 3-point shooting.
So there's a notable game with Bobby against the Rockets that I kind of want to take time to talk about a little bit. Um, Bobby delivered 18 points on 7 for 13 shooting against the Rockets, including 4 for 8 from 3-point line. Though he fumbled 4 turnovers, Clinton pulled down 9 rebounds while dishing out 3 assists. So I guess the point I want to make with this game against the Rockets is, though he had 4 turnovers, he makes up with it with those energy stats or those active stats like rebounds and assists. So he did have the ball a lot, so he had 4 turnovers, but he had 3 assists. He was active on the boards, so he got 9 rebounds. I just like that he does make mistakes, but he makes up for it in those active stats, those energy stats, while also scoring the basketball at a high clip. I want to talk about him meeting with the media. I really liked some of the quotes he gave with the media. They asked him about why the Pistons like and need him on the roster, and he replies with, "I have a versatility and can guard 4 positions." I like that he doesn't respond cocky or in a way that is all about him. He talks about not his offensive scoring ability, but his defensive ability that people would probably not even give him credit for. And he talks about how he can guard all 4 positions. It's not that it's not true. It's just I love that he points it out, and that's kind of what he holds his hat on. And I think that's the kind of guys we need on this Detroit Pistons organization. Let Jaden Ivey, Cade Cunningham, Tobias Harris get all the points, Jalen Duren, but let guys like Bobby and Malik Beasley and Isaiah Stewart hold themselves high on their defensive ability, and loving that at the end of the day they can sleep good because they know that they gave their all on the defensive end. That's what I'm so impressed by Bobby quoting things like that at such a young age. Let's talk about Ron Holland next. Ryan, we were definitely not upset with his outings. He obviously had some ups and downs, but a lot of highlights. What were some of his statistics from Summer League?
So for this Summer League, he averaged darn near 19 points, 6.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 1.5 steals, 1 block, 1 turnover, roughly 2 fouls, averaged out to around 28 minutes per game, shot 40% from the field, 23% from three, and 65% at the line.
I want to read a quote for the people from the Detroit Free Press, giving some of the breakdowns on Ron Holland. Quote, few will complain about Holland's box scores as he led the team with 17.3 points per game and was second in rebounding average 7.3 and fourth in assists 2 while playing in 3 of the 4 games. That included his best all-around game, 20.6 rebounds and 2 blocks. Another quote from the Detroit Free Press that says, the skills that made him attractive to the Pistons were present in Vegas. He made plays in transition, crashed the boards, played solid defense, found seams in the opposing team's defense while cutting. All 10 of his fourth quarter points Friday were scored off cuts or in transition. A very active player. He can create havoc off ball due to the amount of ground he covers with his 6'8" frame. Some aspects of the game come easier for Holland when he's surrounded by NBA players. That's the exciting thing. Better spacing should open more cutting lanes. There will be more transition opportunities for him to capitalize on if he maintains his defensive fire. He'll be a fan in head coach JB Bickerstaff. I think Ron Holland is an absolute juggernaut. I think he's going to be a Pistons fan favorite easily just because of his posterizing dunks. He said he wanted to get a couple posters in Summer League. He did exactly that. Ryan, what is there not to like about Ron Holland? He's a great 5th pick, and I think he's going to be even better with the Pistons team that we have now.
See, the one negative I would say is his 3-point shooting, which is a negative that everybody would say. But realistically, his 3-point shooting, even though he did shoot 23% this Summer League, it wasn't bad. I mean, he only shot 17 threes in total, 4 of 17 for Summer League. When you compare that to like Bobby Klintman shot 31 threes and was 13 of 31. Marcus Sasser, 6 of 24. And then like Dennis Jenkins, 7 of 21. So Ron Holland had out of those guys shot the least amount of threes. And that's something you can expect. Whereas he shot 29 of 71 from the field in general, shooting above 36%, above 38%, shooting 40% from the field. Like Ron Holland, even though he's not a fantastic 3-point shooter, we added in a top tier shooting coach from the Pelicans. We've added in a lot of good vet presence. Tobias Harris can shoot. Tim Hardaway Jr. can shoot. Malik Beasley can shoot. Bobby Klintman, his fellow teammate from the draft, Bobby Klintman can shoot. Marcus Sasser, even though he's not like shooting at a high clip right now, can shoot the 3 ball. Like everybody on the roster that was just added in can shoot. And that makes up for the fact of Ron Holland's struggle from 3. But Ron Holland does every little thing. He's flashy. He loves posterizing people, which I love that. His defense is spectacular. Like there's multiple games where he's sitting there with 2 steals and a block or 2 steals and a block. It's just, it doesn't matter what game it is. He's always active on defense, which I love. We haven't seen a lot of players like that for us in some time. Like last year, our defense in general was atrocious. And so when you have Ron Holland, who can excel at the defensive end, is a fantastic, great slasher. He just needs the 3-point shot to fall. That's it. If you add the 3-point shot to Ron Holland, what we saw from Summer League, this is a great pick. I think a lot of people obviously wanted Donovan Clingan and Dalton Connect and a couple others. But I think Ron Holland at 5 is a great pickup, given the fact that he was the number 2 ranked prospect in that class coming out of high school. So like he's obviously good. the G League Ignite season wasn't fantastic. Take that aside, you still have a great prospect who is still really young, 19 years old now, and all he needs is a 3-point shot.
One thing that is so great about Ron is that he is fearless on the offensive end. So yeah, he's going to struggle from the 3-point line. That is hopefully something that will come along eventually. But what we saw from Asar Thompson last season was a stagnant and at times scared player on the offensive end. And we are not going to see that from Ron Holland. He is an energetic young boy, basically, that just loves running up and down the floor, loves cutting. And I think Asar Thompson at times was nervous about getting run over in the paint when trying to cut, or was nervous about getting stuck against, defenders in the paint, where Ron Holland doesn't have any of those fears. He is a fearless player that is going to be a rim runner, trying to catch, flobs from Cade Cunningham, trying to get passes in the paint from Marcus Sasser. He is a guy that is going to be very active, and I think that's going to set him apart very fast compared to Asar Thompson. That will do it for episode number 39 of season 2. Make sure to comment below your thoughts on these players' debuts and matchups and performances in this year's Summer League. We'd love to know and see your comments. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.